Hello and welcome to Keep Right On, a Birmingham City podcast brought to you by Birmingham Live. I'm Brian Dick and I'm joined here today, mere hours after last night's entertaining 3-2 defeat to Leicester City by our Blues reporter Alex Dicken. Good morning, Alex.
Good morning, good afternoon. Well, it is technically afternoon, Brian, but yeah, good morning and thanks everyone for joining us. It was one of those nights, wasn't it, Brian? Really, I suppose, if we're going to get into it straight away, one of those where Blues actually did a lot right, but ended up on the wrong side of an entertaining 5-goal thriller. I was quietly encouraged. I think that's what I took away from it. I guess it was probably the same for you.
Ish, yeah. Just want to say we're not live, so we potentially could have brushed over that small error by me, but thank you for drawing everyone's attention to it. Yeah, was I encouraged? I mean, there are aspects that were encouraging, yeah. I would say I was slightly alarmed with the ease with which Leicester cut through Blues, obviously on the counter-attack, and the lack of input or action from the sideline into doing anything about it. It just felt like Blues was there for the slicing for, half an hour, 40 minutes. And I thought potentially there was a little bit of passivity or a lack of solutions coming from the sideline. Or am I just being harsh? Were Leicester just that good? Would it have been absolutely criminal for Blues to have dropped their defensive line by, drop down the pitch by 10 meters? Go on, what do you think?
No, I think that the line and the way Blues set up, in terms of, pressing high in Leicester's half, I think that's a non-negotiable for Rooney. I think he's compromised on some things, the playing out from the back being the main one, but I just don't think he's gonna let that one go. I think he wants Blues to condense the play. He wants them to push forward. He wants them to be on the front foot. I don't think any of us expected that against Leicester. I thought we all thought Blues would revert the type and drop back naturally because of the quality of player Leicester have got. But I was pleasantly surprised that it was Blues who were the aggressors for large periods of that game and playing in Leicester's half. But the problem is when you play a team like Leicester, when you make basic mistakes, and the 3 goals Blues conceded were very basic, against players of such quality, they're all Premier League players, really. Let's be honest. You're gonna lose a game. You're not gonna score 4 against a team like that. Blues did well to score 2, so they need to sharpen up defensively. But I think they've got the makings of a good team there now.
Yeah, I suppose if they're not as far up the pitch, JJ doesn't get into the box twice, does he? He's outside the box, and then you don't score the 2 goals. Yeah, okay. I'm prepared to accept that. I think with the first goal, probably the setup, the defensive setup for the counter attack was clearly errant. But and then the second one, just seeing Dewsbury Hall. I mean, he looked like Usain Bolt, didn't he?
Yeah.
I've always thought that Mark Roberts was one of the faster centre backs around. Maybe not on the turn, but he's a big guy and he's always covered ground quite quickly. He's sort of eating up the ground with a long stride.
Dion too.
Yeah, but Dewsbury Hall just flew past them, didn't they? By the time he got to the penalty area. And we can look at Ruddy's decision to come out quite so far there. By the time he got to the penalty area, he'd actually left Roberts and Sanderson in his wake, hadn't he? So it's just you made the reference about them being Premier League players. They're certainly a higher grade of athlete, aren't they? I think that's fair to say.
Yeah, Dewsbury Hall's probably the best ball-carrying midfielder I've seen this season by some distance.
Yeah.
I thought he was excellent in the first half in taking the game away from Blues. That goal, it shouldn't happen, should it? I mean, you shouldn't get a running midfielder going straight through the middle of the 2 centre-backs to collect a pass and then bear straight down onto the goalkeeper. I'm not sure on Ruddy for both the first goals because he's, it's the odds are stacked against him, aren't they? I suppose when a player's running through, he's got to come out. He's got to make the angles smaller. But in doing that against quality players, you give them the option, in Mavadivi's case, to lob it over you, or in Dewsbury Hall's case, to take it around you. That's what good players do. They're calm under pressure. The third goal actually annoyed me more, to be honest, because that was when Blues had obviously just regrouped at half-time after a spell of Leicester pressure before the break. We're beginning to get on the ball again, and Krystian Bielik has just passed it into Patson Daka. He just hit a ball at him, and next thing you know, they're turning it over. 2 passes, and Mavadidi's in again. And he's an excellent player. He's a Premier League player. He's not gonna miss those opportunities if you keep presenting them to him. So that one frustrated me more, especially because of the timing of it. It sapped all the life out of Blues. But there were a lot of positives defensively. At times, it was abject.
Yeah. What were the positives then, Alex? Because I came away, as I said at the start, frustrated at the lack of solutions. So what were the main positives for you?
The fact Blues were able to go toe to toe with that team for large periods was a big positive for me.
Did they go toe to toe though, or Leicester? Am I imagining things and saying that Leicester could have scored 5 or 6?
Oh, don't get me wrong. They could have scored more goals. They're a very good team. They're going to create chances. One of the most positive stats I've been able to find is that only 4 teams have had more possession against Leicester this season in a match. Those 4 teams all lost as well, by the way. It's not just Blues. But Blues had 41% of the ball. Not many teams do that against Leicester. Enzo Maresca admitted after the game that they don't like counter-attacking, but, at times it's the only option, and they've got the players to do that. They've got quality players. Mavadini, Fata were absolutely lightning on the counter-attack. The first goal was ridiculous. The first goal, by the way, was an absolute freak, wasn't it? I mean, for James Justin to hit the post with such force that he sets up a Leicester counter-attack where they've got 2 players running at one, it's absolutely crazy. Don't get me wrong. I think there should be more than just Steven Sunjic back there. There should probably be 2 players, but that's the way it panned out. That's the attacking, front-footed style that Rooney wants to implement. I saw good things last night. The way Blues played through the thirds, the first goal, very impressive. That was a proper passing move from back to front, work down the right to Dembele, nice ball across Sunjic. The intricacy of that pass from Sunjic as well into James inside the box, great turn, finish.
Yeah,
it was really impressive. Not seen him do many things like that. And also the second goal, don't get me wrong, Miyoshi's undercooked the pass slightly to JJ, but they worked it up there quite nicely, and then JJ's made the most of a bad pass with a little deflection. But they didn't. Don't get me wrong, they weren't absolutely banging on the door. And I would say Leicester had greater control of the game. But when you look at the players Leicester have got, Blues aren't going to face another team like that this season. Leeds have got good players, Southampton have got good players, as we've seen, but not to that extent. The front 3 of Leicester, the midfield of Leicester, as we spoke about before the game, Dewsbury Hall and Deeney. And Deeney was actually the worst midfielder. And, 3 years ago, when Leicester are finishing 5th and 6th in the Premier League, we're looking at him and saying that's a £60 million midfielder. Harry Winks, absolutely outstanding in what he does. I think Maresca said after the game that he's their most important player. I would say Blues, if they didn't go toe-to-toe, they were very close to going toe-to-toe. I was encouraged. I was encouraged by that they were able to pass their way through Leicester. I was also encouraged by the energy, the determination of the team. I highlighted something in the first goal. I know I said earlier it was a freak goal, but the sheer effort that some of the players are putting in to get back to try and prevent Mavadidi from scoring and stop the counter-attack.
Yeah, Dembele's flying back, isn't he?
Yeah, exactly. There was 4 or 5 of them. That encouraged me. That's a team that are playing for their manager.
Okay, maybe I've just got my black hat on today then, potentially. Okay. I thought Bakuna's diagonal for the second goal to Miyoshi, and Miyoshi's first touch was, as we've come to expect, sublime. Just want to talk about the first Leicester goal. Sorry, we're sort of jumping about a little bit here, aren't we? You mentioned that some of the players are flying back, and indeed they are. One of them who isn't flying back is Emmanuel Aiwu, and I think we're going to come on to him a little bit later. It's a jog. Let's be fair, he is deep in the Leicester penalty area. The ball's cannoned back out of the penalty area, and presumably he thinks whatever happens, I'm not getting there, because it was, as I said, it was just a jog, and I think as a professional footballer, you've got to bust a gut to get back there, haven't you? Because you never know what might happen. And there might be two deflections, really might produce a save. You just might break to you, and you can hack it clear or something like that. So yeah, I wasn't massively impressed with that. But yeah, I mean, for me, obviously the main positive was JJ. I mean, we've talked about him growing a lot, haven't we, on this podcast in the last 2 or 3 weeks? And he said that he prefers being 6, and Rooney's played him as an 8, and he's still been Blues' best player by some distance, and scored 2 goals. The first goal is a really neat finish, and the second goal is just a testament to his energy to get into that box in that late stage of the game. So yeah, huge kudos to JJ on that one. As you say, we're not going to be playing Leicester every week. I don't think Leicester. You look at what Leicester have got. If we say that the most important position in modern football now is the number 6 role, that defensive playmaker. Leicester went out and spent, was it 8 million on Harry Winks, who was an England international for the Championship. Yeah. Might even have been 10 million, actually, thinking about it. Yeah. Not many clubs can do that. I wouldn't say that they are, absolutely head and shoulders above anything we've seen in the Championship. I think a couple of years back to the Fulham team that absolutely destroyed Blues with Harry Wilson and Tom Kearney and Mitrovic and players like that. That it's not unusual to have an absolute huge front runner and favourite in the Championship, but Leicester are on record pace, so I suppose that speaks to as much about where they are in this particular version of the Championship as anything.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, it's pretty testament to how well Ipswich have done, in that they've managed to really keep pace with them over the first half of the season. And you've said many times that Ipswich are the outlier, aren't they, at the top? But still, I think it's 12 or 13 points that Leicester are ahead of third place. So, inevitably that conversation is going to be had, definitely not by us, but by other people further down the line, pundits and things, about Leicester, the best Championship team ever. It happens every time a team like this is in the league and does so well. They're going to get promoted. Monday was probably a free hit for Blues. Blues came out of it with a little bit of credit. Probably could have got more another night if things went better defensively, and they managed to stop those counter-attacks and didn't shoot themselves in the foot. But yeah, I was pleasantly surprised. One thing that you mentioned there that I want to kind of switch around to a Blues perspective is Harry Winks and how influential he was for Leicester. Krystian Bielik, Blues number 6. Let's face it, he's had a number of teething issues since Wayne Rooney came in. He's probably been the player, alongside Sanderson, although Sanderson has picked up quite a lot in the last 2 games, I think, especially at Cardiff, Bielik struggled to adapt to the new way of playing and found things difficult at times, having been so imperious under Eustace previously. His performance, especially in possession, it wasn't great at Cardiff, but he made up for it with his positioning and the quality of his interceptions and his play in general in front of the back too. But against Leicester on Monday, I thought he was so poor. In the first half, he kept giving the ball away, and then there was that moment after half time, and as soon as he gave that ball away in midfield and Leicester sprung, you could see Rooney turn around, look at his bench absolutely in disbelief and frustrated. Speaking to Rooney after the match, he said that at half time his message to the players was, we need to get control of this game midfield. Otherwise they're going to kill us, and lo and behold, 4 or 5 minutes after half time, Leicester get that crucial goal. Bielik's an interesting one. I've had a lot of questions. We're going to come on to the questions from supporters later on, but I've had a lot of questions about him and his suitability to Rooney's system. I think we mentioned a number of times, because he is obviously a very good player, He was one of the best players in the previous system. He's technically, he has shown at times that he can be a good player, that he should theoretically be able to fit in, Brian, but at the moment it's just not happening, is it?
Yeah, and I'm not sure why, really. I wonder if it's because the whole team's further up the pitch, then he feels vulnerable with having so much space behind him. Maybe other opposition teams have sort of smelled blood in the water when Bielik's in possession and maybe press him with a bit more conviction. I can't put my finger on it, because I remember when Rooney first came, Bielik gave the interview in the match program, didn't he, in Blues News? And your eyes lit up with what sounded like a veiled swipe at a previous regime, saying that I will get to play a bit more football now, and you would think, well, go on then, Krystian, go and do it. And it's looking ill-fitting at the moment, isn't it? He's a good footballer. I'm struggling to put my finger on it. Is it an athleticism issue or a confidence issue? I don't know. What do you think?
Maybe a combination of both. I think, we look at Bielik, and I think one of the things that we both really like about him is that, he's 6'4". In front of the two central defenders, he mops up so much aerially as well as on the ground. Yeah, his positional play is very, very good in that respect, and you don't often see that from the stands so much. You have to kind of watch things back to see that. I think he's one of those players that's probably not massively appreciated by supporters, but by his teammates, he is. I think a lot of fans do obviously rate him highly. We were all chuffed when he came back in the summer. But I suppose physically, he's not the most mobile player in the world. When the ball does get turned over, he struggles. He struggles to get back into position. That's not through a lack of effort. I think some fans criticised him for the first goal at Coventry. I've seen a change in him since. I don't think that's been an issue. It definitely was an issue against Leicester. His effort was there. You see, he was one of the players for that first goal when Fato and Mavadidi are running away from the defence that was absolutely charging back. It's just clearly a technical issue. He's got to obviously adapt to the way Rooney wants to play, but at the moment he's just not working. I'd be interested actually to see whether he keeps his place at Plymouth, because Rooney rarely, Bielik's a player who's rarely hooked. And Rooney has done it a few times now. He's taken him off and brought someone else on. So he did it again against Leicester. So that tells you that he's not quite happy with his performance levels.
Yeah, what I would say, just looking at some stats here, of all the players that have played meaningful game time, his pass completion rate is 83.2%. So, only Keshi Anderson, has not played for some weeks, and Bielik's played 3 times as many minutes as Keshi Anderson. Keshi Anderson's higher, Dion Sanderson is higher, Aiwu is higher, but then you'd say that Aiwu and Sanderson are playing simpler balls, aren't they, to another defender? So Bielik's ball possession percentage is pretty good, and I think we saw that he can play the defence splitting passes against Cardiff, didn't he, when he sent Jay Stansfield away? So as I said, I'm scratching my head to explain why he appears to be struggling sometimes. Because if he recovers and becomes the player that we know he can be, then he's clearly in Blues' best 11. Yeah,
he is 100%. Bielik is one of the players, coming on to our next point, that has taken some stick from former Blues captain Troy Deeney during his Sky Sports appearances against Leicester and previously against Coventry. I think you wanted to highlight something that Deeney said in his analysis last night.
Yeah, so Troy was obviously doing he was a pundit doing the games for Sky last night. It was very interesting in many ways. I particularly liked his little exchange with Sanderson at the start of the game. when he asked him about whether he was needing a smaller armband, because the captain's armband was very big last season, presumably making reference to his large biceps or something. But yeah, so
right there.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, that's why we get paid the big dollars. Yeah. So Deeney mentioned at the end of the game that some of the lads are leaning on the manager as an excuse. Now I'm thinking from that, I'm inferring from that, and if I'm incorrect in what I'm inferring, then it's not done with any agenda. I'm inferring that there's sort of mixed messages. He's suggesting that there's mixed messaging. Are we playing or aren't we playing? Or out from the back. And I'd just be interested to know who he thinks was using the manager as an excuse. I think I'd probably exonerate most people, if I'm honest. We've just talked about Bielik. Now, the fact he's criticised Bielik in the past, you may be thinking, is Bielik not doing what's being asked? I wonder, if he's making reference to some of the playing out, whether they are playing out or whether they're not playing out, and that was something that surprised me a little bit last night, Alex. There was quite a lot of playing out from the back.
Yeah, there was.
And I was surprised at that, and I was thinking, well, are we still doing this, or are we not doing this now, or are we doing this sometimes? And can you shed any light on what Rooney's instructions in those circumstances are?
Basically, he's emphasising the importance of decision making and game management. Basically, he's quite comfortable with the players doing it when they're absolutely certain that it's going to pay off. He said that we can't just keep doing it constantly. Even when we're under pressure, like Man City, for example, do it. They'll do it every single opportunity because they've got the quality players to do that. He says he acknowledges Blues haven't got the quality players to do that. So he's leaving it up to them to make those decisions on the pitch. That's on them. When they feel they can do it, they can do it. But a specific tactic they've been using in the last couple of games, and they did do it a little bit last night, is to hit Lee Buchanan for the long balls on goal kicks. He's played obviously a little bit higher up than Emmanuel Aiwu has been playing on the right side to kind of create a bit of a lopsided back three when Blues have the ball. But that's purely on the players to decide when to play out and when not to. I think as we could all see watching the game, when's a good time to play it and when's not to, I suppose. But yeah, I don't think Blues did it that badly against Leicester. I thought it was actually okay a lot of the time. There were a few occasions where they gave the ball away needlessly. I can think of when John Ruddy tried to do a quick throw actually through the middle of the pitch to Siriki Dembele, who was coming in from the left, I think he was at the time. And Dembele has just not got anywhere near it. He's been beaten to the ball, and Leicester have turned it over, and they're in Blues' final third, within seconds. So there needs to be, some accountability on the players who are doing its part. I mean, Ruddy's a good example. I think he looks so rusty at times when he does it. I know when shortly after Rooney came in, I spoke to John Ruddy after the Middlesbrough game, and mentioned how Rooney likes his goalkeepers to play. And John Ruddy basically made the point that my sweeper keeper actions are up there with the best in the league. It's not something I'm new to. But I do think he's one of the players, especially when the ball's on the floor. I think he's very good with his distribution out his hands, but when the ball's but when the ball's on the floor, short passing, especially under pressure, I do think John Ruddy struggles a bit.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, it was just interesting to hear some of the pundits refer to a little bit of mixed messaging, and Deeney suggests that kind of sort of endorsing the suggestion. I think it was made by Joby McAnuff that there is mixed messaging and that some of the players are using that as an excuse. So, yeah, that was an interesting point for me. I suppose what we have to recognise, we're 11 games into Rooney's tenure now, aren't we? And what we have to recognise is that some of those games have been difficult. Middlesbrough away, they'd just turned form was his first game. They'd just turned their form round, hadn't they? They were going in on a run of wins. Ipswich at home, obviously we know what Ipswich are this season. Leicester, Southampton away. At least, let's say half of those games have been challenging fixtures, haven't they? And we're now about to enter a run of, if there is such a thing in a championship, heavy inverted commas, less challenging or more inviting or less ominous fixtures, aren't we? So what have we got coming up over the Christmas period?
Winnable games, Brian. Winnable games.
So we can approach them with no fear. Absolutely.
So 3 games before the turn of the year. Plymouth away on Saturday, Stoke City on Boxing Day, and Bristol City on December 29th. Plymouth 16th in the league. Form-wise, win, draw, loss, win, loss, win from the last 6. So 3 wins now. I'm going to do that for the next one. Stoke City form-wise, 4 defeats, 2 draws from the last 6. Bristol City form-wise, 2 wins, 3 defeats, 1 draw from the last 6. So 2 of those teams, Stoke and Bristol City, not in amazing form, especially Stoke, who at the time of podcasting, are still managerless, aren't they? Although they may be about to nab Plymouth's manager, Stephen Schumacher. But irrespective of that, Plymouth away feels like a difficult game to me. I'll be honest about that one, Brian. They were a very impressive side at St Andrews early this season. Blues and Plymouth have got identical records in the league. Plymouth a marginally better goal difference. I think going to Home Park, it's going to be packed out just before Christmas, is actually quite a daunting task. It
will be difficult, Schumacher or no Schumacher. I think at some point in the next 10 days, Blues will face a Stephen Schumacher side. Now, whether that is on Saturday in Devon or on Boxing Day at home remains to be seen. This probably not worth talking too much about it, because by the time this comes out, we'll already know. But yeah, Plymouth. Just for those that don't know, Plymouth came up as League One champions last season. They won 20 of their 23 home matches in League One. I think there's only 2 teams that have won more home matches in the entirety of 2023 than Plymouth. And it's going to be difficult. What I would say is that they needed a winner 6 minutes into added time to break a 3-2 tie with Rotherham on Saturday, to break a 2-2 tie with Rotherham on Saturday, to win 3-2 in the end. So yes, if they've lost their manager, then it could be a good time to play Plymouth. But I mean that's difficult. What they are is they're creative. They've got wide players, Barley Mumba and Morgan Whittaker, who are a real threat. And we, as you absolutely rightly said, we saw that at St Andrews, didn't we? You know, they really did cut Blues to pieces at times there. And I thought Blues were lucky to draw, never mind score a late winner through Jay Stansfield, if I'm honest. So yeah, that will be a tough one. Stoke seem a bit lost to me.
Yeah,
they seem to be going around in circles a little bit. They've had huge recruitment drive in the summer from all over the world, not just all over Europe. And Alex Neil wasn't able to find the best combination. And yes, they picked up a draw at Albion in their last game, a commendable draw because Albion are going well. But they seem to be a little bit going round in circles. And if it is Schumacher that takes over there, will he have had enough time to organise them and to get them taking steps forward?
Yeah, Bristol City are another one, aren't they, I suppose, with a new coach, Liam Manning, gone down that route of getting a highly rated young coach in. Their results have been very mixed. They beat Middlesbrough, which is an impressive feat, although their form has dipped slightly recently. But they've also lost, 3 of the last 5 as well. So, they can be got at St Andrews. I wanted to actually do a points prediction, Brian. I hate doing these things because they'll always bite us. But I'm gonna actually be positive and say 7 points from those 3 matches. I think the tide has turned.
Okay, well, we did this a couple of games ago, and you said 7 from 5 games, as did I, to be fair. So, sorry, my laptop's telling me that it needs to restart. 7 from 3 games. So you probably drawing away at home park and beating Stoke and Bristol City. Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm going for a win at home park.
Right. Okay.
I was convinced that after watching Plymouth in August that this would be a game Blues would end up losing in December. But now after the last two games, the last two performances, don't get me wrong, as we've mentioned, there are things to improve upon. The Leicester match, but I fancy Blues together and get a result. I think they've got enough quality, and I'm not sure which of the other two Christmas games at St Andrews Blues will slip up and only draw in, but maybe the new manager bounce for Stoke when it does inevitably happen, because a guy will be in place by that match, surely, probably Stephen Schumacher. So maybe that one. But I fancy Blues to get 7 points in those three games, and that'll inevitably, be wrong. But yeah, that's what I'm going to go with.
Okay, I can't get to 7, I'm afraid. I think my upper limit is 5, a win and 2 draws. Yeah. I mean, we're talking 2 wins in 11 so far, and you're saying 2 wins in the next 3.
It's turn, Brian. It's turn. I'm telling you.
Okay, all right. Have you been got at, Alex?
Probably, yeah. Probably.
Okay, good. I hope you're right. Good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I will take that.
All right. We'll move on from that to avoid a disagreement. Questions. I had a fair few coming this week. A few along a similar theme. So we've picked out 3 questions. Going to start with Chris Wood. Get a lot of transfer questions. If we could strengthen just one position in January, what would you prioritise? I think we need attention in most areas, but a centre back that can play how Wayne Rooney wants now seems a priority to me. Brian,
I'd sign Chris Wood.
Yeah. I don't think he's that Chris Wood, but he'd be a good player.
I don't think the Forest fans are enjoying him at the moment. I mean, 2 months ago, you would not have said centre back, would you? But Long still injured. Got serious misgivings over Aiwu. Roberts, yeah, I don't mind Roberts, to be fair. Although he was a little bit exposed last night. Is it the main priority? I still think to make it all tick, I'd like a hand-picked Rooney central midfielder for me. Now, I'm probably going to have to go away and think who that might be. I really like Dan Barlasser at Middlesbrough. But the prospect of Middlesbrough selling him to Blues is probably non-existent. But just as a player, I like Dan Barlasser at Middlesbrough. So that kind of Bielik type player. But yes, I think I'd say it starts with a 6 for me. I think.
Yeah, I think there are 3 positions, two positions that are really important to the way Rooney wants to play. The main one I think is the 6. And the other is the goalkeeper. I don't think Blues are going to change the goalkeeper in January. They've got 2 experienced goalkeepers out of contract in the summer, so it makes sense to do it then, doesn't it? If you want to change that department. At number 6, definitely Sunjic and Bielik. I don't think they'll have shown in the Rooney's 11 games that they, might not have the quality to do it long term. I think the jury's probably still out on Bielik for that. Would give him another chance. He's had a few chances, so we'll give him another chance because we know what quality he has. The one we always talk about is striker. I actually now don't think that's as pressing. It'd be nice if Blues could get a striker because let's face it, in the summer they're going to probably be down to 0 strikers, aren't they? If you think about it, Stansfield's going back, Djukovic and Hogan out of contract. I suppose Tyler Roberts the only potential striker on the books, and even he's probably more a number 10. So I agree with you. Midfielder, I'm not going to mention a name because we're going to come on to it in the takes. The one I think could be an option. But moving on. Alex Hands. Seemingly starting to click for a lot of players and this system. Players like Ruddy, Aiwu and Bielik still struggling. Can Rooney accommodate Bielik in his best role as it's a waste otherwise due to his quality? Also, do we have to buy Aiwu as he would really be a waste at 3 million?
Let's get the Aiwu side of that out first. It's probably the easiest bit to deal with.
Yeah, so Aiwu, I was told in the summer is an option. But they can take it any time during the course of the loan agreement. I think Blues did confirm that as well, actually, that it's an option, not an obligation. I'm not sure what kind of option it is, because sometimes there can be appearances and things involved that trigger things. So, he's not played a great deal of games so far, so I don't think we'll be close to that yet. But yeah, I was told it's an option, so it's in Blues' hands whether they want to sign him.
Okay,
Brian, with Aiwu, do you see it working? Because I know he's a young, very inexperienced defender, really. Especially, he's not played in England before. It's a new country, a new way of playing. He's going to be 23 on Christmas Day, so he's young. But I've just seen, I look at Sanderson next to him, who's only just turned 24, and don't get me wrong, Sanderson's not been perfect over the last 2 months, but he's so much more polished than Aiwu in my eyes.
Yeah. Listen, I'm not going to call time on it. The guy's had 10 games. The guy's had 10 games, and he's in a new competition. Probably, I don't know if he would admit whether it's a competition which the pace and the physicality and maybe even the quality at times, certainly last night, will have surprised him, because Mavididi had him on toast, didn't he, last night? It looked really, really uncomfortable for Aiwu, and I think he lost faith in his ability to deal with Mavididi, which meant he was backing off for fear of being taken on the outside. And then Mavididi just picked his spot, didn't he, for that third goal. So it was as comprehensive a one-sided battle as I've seen since Solly March taught Jonathan Grounds a thing or two down at Brighton many years ago. So it was really one-sided. That said, I won't throw the won't call time on the experiment just yet. 10 games in, young player. I think there has been some positives. I thought the first couple of games at right back were actually okay, didn't you?
Yeah, he played well at Cardiff, I thought, really well. Best performance by a mile. He should have scored, but best performance by a mile.
It doesn't convince me as a centre-back yet,
no.
I'll have to say.
And that's the problem, because he's not going to be a right-back, is he, long-term?
No, not with Laird and whatever happens with Cody Drameh.
So, yeah, there's a lot of work to do there. If you're looking at Blues' 4 centre-backs when they're all fit, he's probably the one I'm least confident in. But Wayne Rooney seems quite high on him in terms of he's picked him consistently. I know the last couple of weeks he hasn't had much choice other than to play him. But even after that, disastrous performance at Blackburn, he still kept his place in the 11. So he obviously sees something in him, and he's trying to develop him, and that's his job, isn't it? So, like you, I want to give it a bit more time, but I've been frustrated more than anything with his performances, because we saw what he could do against Cardiff, so you want to see it more consistently. But that's really, if I think about it, the only game I've been actually quite impressed that he's played. I thought he was okay on his debut at Southampton, but nothing majorly good. Others, I think he struggled, and he's always looked like he's got a mistake in him. The jury's still out on him for sure. Final question. Sorry, go on, Brian. You got anything?
Alex was just mentioning. He mentioned about Bielik as well, still struggling.
Yes.
Can Rooney accommodate Bielik? I mean, in theory, yes. Alex, I get your point that it's not happening at the moment, but in theory, yes, he should be able to, because Bielik's an international footballer, for heaven's sake, and I don't think he's being asked to do anything that's so outlandishly beyond his skill set that it couldn't work. It's just a question of good management from Rooney and application, and maybe a little bit of being receptive to coaching from Bielik.
Yeah, no, agreed. Final question from Steve Paul: do you guys expect bids for JJ? This saved by the bell. This is an interesting one for me, because I was probably one of the people a couple of months ago, when John Eustace was still in charge, that couldn't really see a role for JJ in the team. I couldn't see where he fitted in or what he was kind of bringing to the table. And I think, as somebody pointed out to me on Twitter after the Leicester game, he's probably not exceptional at anything. But he's very good at most things. He's a good, competent finisher when he gets into those positions, and he's getting more into now that he's playing as a number 8 rather than a number 6. He's quite tidy on the ball in the way that he takes it from defenders and turns and plays forward. Rooney really, really likes that. And he's also got a fairly decent engine on him. He can get from box to box. So I think he's a player that's good at most things, and I don't think there's any real considerable weakness that he's got to his game. So I think we're all right to be excited about him in the way that Blues are playing and how he fits into this system. He's been by far the most impressive player in Rooney's 11 games. So long may it continue. With regards to bids, there's been a lot of talk about interest in JJ for probably 18 months now from a number of teams, some in the Premier League, some in Italy. I think Leicester was one of them when they're in the Premier League as well. So it's nothing new. You can't stop bids, can you, I suppose? And clubs will be more inclined to make bids now that JJ is playing well in the Championship and looking like a very good player at this level. But the good thing now, I think, is that he completely believes in the way Rooney is playing and his role. He sees his role in the team now. I know he would have been frustrated with how it played out under use at the start of this season, in that he played every pre-season game as one of the best players and then was taken out the 11 for the opening day and couldn't get back in, really. I think he made one start in the league before Rooney pitched up. So he is really enjoying his football. So long may it continue. And if bids do come in, which no one at the club can stop, then hopefully JJ sees a place for him at Blues and sees his future here now, because I think he's going to be crucial to the way Blues are going forward.
Yeah, I agree. I think in these situations, it's always worth looking at what's left on a contract as well. Now, JJ signed a new contract last July, I think it was, July 2022, and he's got a deal which runs to 2025 with a year of with an option year in it as well. So effectively 2.5 years. You would think that about 18 months left on a contract, you start getting agents, start maybe drip feeding stories out there. I don't think we're at that stage with JJ yet. What I would say is his progress has merited probably, I have no idea what he's on at the moment, but his success with Wales and starting to become more assertive under Rooney, his success would potentially, make people around him and potentially even Blues think, well, he might be worth even a bit more now. And at that point, hopefully his current deal has got a significant release fee in it. If Blues do renegotiate in the light of recent progress, then you'd certainly want that to be a part of it. But as you say, I'd be really surprised if, listen, we're kidding ourselves if we're thinking that any functional recruitment department in the top 2 divisions doesn't know who Jordan James is. He's an international footballer. So yeah, I think there will be interest in him. Now, whether that interest materialises into a, here's a take it or leave it £15 million offer, or whether it's just a phone call, is JJ, would you be willing to talk about JJ? Interest covers a multitude of bases, doesn't it? But
yeah,
everyone will know about Jordan James in the top 2 divisions. Yeah.
No, agreed. On to the takes. John Morell, I hope I've pronounced that correctly, regular contributor. I'm not a Rooney fan by any stretch, but you can see the signs of things starting to click. Where do you see Blues trying to strengthen this side? For me, I didn't think midfield was an issue, but I can see why there is supposed interest in Max Bird at Derby. Surely a forward is top 2. We touched on transfers earlier, but the Max Bird thing I think is quite interesting. A player I picked out who may fit the Rooney system, I think a month or 2 ago. Had him at Derby, spoke very, very highly of him, not just in terms of his technical qualities, but also how he is at the training ground, how he is away from the pitch, doing extras after training, and his mentality. Rooney was really, really big on him. Player who can play in that 6 role or slightly more advanced than 8. So, he's only 23 as well. Got good experience in the Championship, good experience in League One, having dropped down with Derby over the last 2 seasons. I think he's out of contract at the end of this season as well, so potentially a cut price deal to be done there. Rooney will probably have to fight Liam Rosenior at Hull City if he does want him. But yeah, I like the idea of Max Bird. I think he'd add something to the system Rooney's got here.
Yeah, what Derby will have is they will have a decision to make in January, because I think there will be interest, and I think even Paul Warren's actually gone on the record and said they are expecting interest in him in January. Now they'll have the decision of whether they want to try and eke a little bit of value out in terms of a transfer fee, rather than just letting it run down at the end of the season. I'm pretty confident from what I hear from our Derby County guy Lee Curtis is that they will, if they haven't already, offered him and Erin Cashane a new deal as well. So, yeah, you know, in the way that Buchanan has looked a really good player, I think Max Bird, having come through at Derby, I think Max Bird is a good shout there as well. So, yeah, interesting name, that one, Alex.
Final take from Andy Pugh, another transfer one. A bit of a theme. A centre-back good in the air with a lot more mobility is needed to play next to Sanderson long term. For what it's worth, I think Robbo has done well since coming in, but he's too slow to play in a high-line press system. Nice to see some progress, though, in the last 2 games, particularly at Cardiff. Brian?
Yeah, what's coming across in these takes is, and what you've said is, everyone is a bit more positive than me about the last couple of games. So, you know, maybe I'll go back and rewatch last night's game again. Cardiff was definitely a step forward. I agree. It was as close to 90 minutes. You know, not perfect. We're not saying it was perfect, but that was as close to 90 minutes as we've had under Rooney so far. Roberts. I mean, Roberts got taken to the cleaners by Kiernan Dewsbury Hall, didn't he? We've just said that, and on the turn, you know, he's been asked to turn and run back towards his own goal from the centre circle. It didn't look comfortable. I will agree. I think where he was previously, I mean, he's getting on now. We have to remember that as well. I think previously where he was quite quick was coming out to cover ground down the inside left and inside right channels. You know, out to the flanks. He's 33, so obviously Blues are going to be, and Kevin Long's in his 30s as well. Obviously, Blues are going to be looking at another centre back, and that centre back is key to the way Rooney wants to play, and they should start looking for that centre back in January. If they, presumably, they already have as well. So, yeah, I can't disagree with any of those comments really from Andy. I think centre back is an important position, and like centre forward, one where the options will be depleted in the summer.
Yeah, it is. I think Blues probably need to strengthen all down that spine, don't they? Goalkeeper, centre back, centre mid, as we mentioned, and obviously striker, because they're going to have no options in the summer. So yeah, a lot of work to do. But that was why Rooney was brought in 3 months before the January transfer window started, so he could get some ideas into the recruitment team and focus on which players to bring in. So yeah, hopefully, John and Andy, your concerns are addressed. I think that's it, Brian.
Yeah, I'm going to go away and change out my Grinch outfit and have some happy juice and hopefully there'll be 7 points from the next 3 games.
There really will be. Thanks everyone for listening, and you can obviously get this on Spotify, all your podcast channels, and also on YouTube now. So yeah, if you want to see our faces, head over there. Thanks everyone.